Hey guys, welcome back to Razor RC. Got another review video for you today. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Traxxas Slash 2-wheel drive short course truck. I've owned this one for a few months, and actually I bought it originally to do some spec slash racing, and kind of over time had been converting it more and more into like a full-blown race kit. And the funny thing was I ended up with so many of the stock parts left over that I ended up having enough parts basically to build a whole new Traxxas Slash again. So I actually now have two kits. I've got the original Traxxas Slash, as you see here, completely stock, and then I've got my full-blown race, modified short course truck. And so yeah, I thought I'd do a review of this since I've owned it for a while. I'm going to review this truck in a bunch of different categories, all the usual stuff, rating it from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. So let's go on with the review. This is the Traxxas Slash 2-wheel drive. So as you can see, I got the red, silver, and black version. Pretty nice looking body. And let's pull that thing off. And hopefully this is nothing too surprising to you. This is what a Traxxas Slash looks like. Pretty standard looking truck. The only changes I made are basically adding these aluminum shock caps because the plastic ones basically tend to fall off and kind of are a little annoying that way. But I thought I'd kind of cover this thing in a bunch of different areas. First of all, usually I cover the build, but this comes as an RTR. Everything was pretty much assembled correctly, no real issues. So yeah, it was ready to run out of the box. I think the slipper was a little bit loose, but other than that, it ran fine. So the build, is kind of not applicable. But after that, let's talk about the design. So this is the Traxxas Slash, the original short course truck. Basically spawned a complete new genre of RC cars. Prior to this, there really weren't short course trucks, and since then, this is probably one of the most popular classes out there. A lot of people buy a Slash or a short course truck as their first RC car, and it's really kind of the gateway vehicle, I think, for a lot of recreational people who want to get into RC kits. So, talking about the design real quick, this is basically based off of the Rustler Bandit Stampede that came before it. A lot of the parts are interchangeable, so this is kind of their standard two-wheel drive design. Standard rear motor, transmission, has unequal arms front and rear. This chassis is kind of the high center of gravity chassis. It's pretty high off the ground, and then a lot of protection, obviously. So you got big bumpers front and rear, these side nerf bars, big body posts that stick up. So the whole truck's pretty well protected. Overall, the design is pretty antiquated at this point. The Rustler Bandit, I think, I've been around for like 20 years or so. This is based off those platforms, and even though the Slash has been around, I don't know, I guess a little over 10 years now, it's based off a very old design. So design-wise, this is pretty old. If you kind of look at it, it's doesn't look much different from something from like the 90s. So design-wise, I'm actually going to rate it a 3 out of 10. There's a lot of stuff I don't like about the design, not just that it's old, but if you kind of follow through my build video series on my race kit, there's a bunch of stuff I didn't like about how this truck was set up, and some of the quick things I can go through. Basically, the high center of gravity chassis is terrible. They really should run a low center of gravity chassis, like the VXL version, or like something like an HPI Blitz or Associated SC10, that kind of thing. Basically all have a LCG chassis, but this one I guess is good for clearing rocks and grass and stuff like that, but overall, performance wise, it's pretty terrible. This truck also features different wheels front and rear, so the arms are actually shorter in the front, so it's got wider offset wheels in the front, and then in the back it's got wider arms and narrower offset wheels, so you cannot really flip the wheels front to back. Pretty annoying, kind of dumb. Something I wish they had addressed early on. Other things I didn't really like: the transmission's pretty antiquated. It's basically got the motor mounted to basically the plastic there. There's no aluminum motor mount. The diff is not sealed, so you can't really fill it up with oil or whatever to try to get different diff actions. Some other annoying things like this rear bumper has these ears that are normally kind of right here and go over this rear bulkhead. I cut those off because they just tend to catch on the ground. So kind of a lot of weird little things that I didn't particularly like. If you want to check them all out, you can watch my build series video, and I go over them step by step. But overall, I don't really like the design of this truck. There's a lot of little things that annoy me. The servo's kind of in a weird position. You know, the receiver box is massively huge. There are some good things. You know, the truck is waterproof. Some other nice stuff is it is brushless ready. It is LiPo capable. So even though this is the brushed, you know, nickel metal hydride type version, you can basically run modern electronics, modern batteries, that sort of thing. So that's kind of nice. They did provide some nice upgrade path. In addition to that, you know, even though this is the basic Traxxas Slashes, the $189 version without a LiPo or without any battery or charger, they do kind of give you some nice little upgrades. So you do have like adjustable turnbuckles on all the front and rear. You actually have all hex screws throughout the whole track, so there's no Phillips head stuff. Hex screws are quite a bit nicer. You get kind of like this nice little carbon fiber, I'm sorry, not carbon fiber, but fiberglass hinge pin brace up front. So, you know, a lot of the Traxxas vehicles, if you look at their VXL version, which is their brushless version, and you look at their base like XL5 version, usually the XL5 version, they kind of cheap out on parts with like the Phillips screws or the stock plastic turnbuckles and stuff. But this one's pretty much outfitted just as well as, you know, the more expensive versions. So that's kind of nice that Traxxas actually provides a Slash that is pretty much you know, up to date with their latest stuff. So they didn't really cut any costs with this particular version. So design-wise, yeah, you know, not the best. So I'm gonna have to give it like a 3. Next up is performance, and the Traxxas Slash actually runs reasonably well. The suspension is actually pretty good. The springs are pretty nice and plush. You know, kind of glide over bumps and stuff like that. The motor's decent. I think stock gearing is 16 tooth pinion and 90 tooth spur. That's a little bit on the conservative side. You could gear up a little bit. You know, I think running like an 18 tooth pinion would still give you a little extra speed without really sacrificing any heat. You know, this motor is actually fairly torquey and gets the truck moving pretty well. So definitely handle gearing up a little bit. The ESC, you know, as I mentioned, is LiPo capable, so that's nice. As long as you're running in LiPo mode, you know, there's no issue. So solid ESC, decent motor. The servo is okay. It's plastic geared, but it's got decent torque, decent speed. You know, it's not really fast, but you know, for an RTR, you know, sort of entry level vehicle, I think it's fine. No issues there. So overall, the performance, you know, I'm going to rate it like a 5. The speed is adequate. You know, the handling is adequate. This high center gravity chassis does tend to like to roll around a lot, but you know, if you play with the oils and kind of play with the shock locations and stuff, I think you get working decently well. Still a fun truck to drive. You know, I kind of view this as basically like entry-level vehicle. You know, if you're looking to get into the hobby, never had a hobby grade RC car before, you know, this is a good way to enter. It's ready to run. You know, basically has everything you need to get going. So performance-wise, I'm going to rate it a 5. You know, I have driven this on the track. You know, I do actually race this once in a while, and performance is actually decent. You know, it doesn't have a whole lot of traction with these tires on the track. But you know, they're decent tires. It jumps reasonably well. Handles okay. The suspension's actually adequate. You know, with the rear motor, you actually get some pretty decent rear traction. So overall, performance is adequate, and kind of what I would expect from like a $190 truck. So moving on, durability, and this is a fairly durable truck. I think the 4x4 version is a little more durable. If you kind of look at the 4x4 and you compare it to this truck, obviously there are differences in the 4x4 has 4-wheel drive, but beyond that, you actually see that the 4x4, in my opinion, is basically kind of like version 2 of this truck. They came out with this truck, and you know, they just wanted kind of a cheap 2-wheel drive truck out there that people would buy, and it became so popular that, you know, they came out with the 4x4 version, obviously. And then the 4x4 is kind of where you see that they took the time to basically build it right? They have like real shock towers, real adjustments, overall, you know, real differentials that you can actually fill with grease, you know, nice aluminum drive shafts, all this kind of stuff. So overall, the 4x4 I think is a little more durable than this one. You know, they actually use bigger hinge pins, thicker hinge pins, you know, sturdier camber blocks, heavy duty drive shafts and stuff. So the 4x4 is definitely more durable. This one, I'm going to rate it like a 4. It's not bad. It's not great. Overall, it's okay. There are some weak points on the truck. As I mentioned, the shock caps tend to pop off. The hinge pins tend to bend really easily because I think they're fairly thin. I think they're like 3mm hinge pins. Other stuff that happens, the spur gear is a little wonky. It doesn't really spin that smoothly. The caster blocks can kind of flex and bend those hinge pins. The shock shafts are a little weak and bend. So overall, you know, I don't think there's any thing too bad about this truck. The shock caps do tend to pop off, so that's the only upgrade I think you absolutely need to get. But the hinge pins are probably the second weakest part. And you know, you may want to look into buying some like STRC hardened hinge pins or something like that. But overall durability, I'm going to give it a 4, slightly below average, but not fragile by any means. Next category is value, and the Traxxas Slash, you know, this version I bought is $189. I think a little bit on the expensive side, so I'm again going to rate it a 4. I think you do get some decent upgrades with like the adjustable turnbuckles and the hex screws and stuff like that. You know, all steel transmission, brushless ready, right? It doesn't come with the brushless motor, but you could throw in a motor and ESC and be ready to go. The electronics are, you know, not the greatest. But you know, they're okay. It does come with a radio, and I want to talk about that real quick. This is the Traxxas TQ radio. Pretty terrible radio, honestly. And it's not so much that, you know, it doesn't work or you know, breaks or anything like that. But the problem with this radio is that there's really only one adjustment, and that's the steering trim, as you see here. So to me, there are 2 or I guess 3 adjustments that every radio should have. One is steering trim, that's very important. Second is servo reversing. So I think you can do that basically with the set button. You can reverse the orientation of the servo so that left is right and right is left, because depending on how you mount your servo, you may need that. But the last thing that this radio does not have is basically what's called dual rate or endpoint adjustment. So that's basically to limit how far the wheels turn left and right, so that basically you don't overstrain your servo. And it works fine out of the box, but you really can't adjust that. So if things change, or you put on different wheels or tires, or you want to run it in a different RC car, you know, you really can't adjust the endpoints or what's called the dual rate. Dual rate is basically adjusting both of them at the same time, and then endpoint is you can adjust one side at a time, basically how far it turns left and right. So kind of a letdown there, and that's why I can't really recommend this radio, but it does work. You know, you can drive this thing. It's enough to get you out going with an RTR kit. So that's value for you there. And then the next category is support, and this is really the area that I think this truck really shines. You know, there are a lot of other kits out there that are cheaper. There's the Traxxas Evader, I guess, the HPI Blitz, the Arma Fury, you know, I think Red Cat's got a truck, the Helion. You know, there's all kinds of short course trucks out there that are generally tend to be a little bit cheaper than this kit. So while the support for those guys is in some cases totally non-existent to somewhat okay, Traxxas really, I think, is probably the best company in the RC community in terms of support. So you can pretty much get parts everywhere. You can call them up anytime and ask for help, you know, technical help or whatever. You know, I've called them up before and they helped me with some issues I was having with the electronics and stuff like that. So Traxxas, I have to give them a 10. I think they are the best supported company out there, you know, and that's actually really important, I think, for your first RC car, because, you know, you're going to drive this thing, you're going to break something or mess something up, strip a spur gear or break an arm, whatever. And it's nice to be able to just drive down to your local hobby shop and pick up a part for, you know, $4 or $5. You know, the parts are cheap, they're widely available, and that's really, really nice, I think, for people. So support, I think, is a 10 for me. I don't know if I covered value. I think value is basically kind of a 5. You know, it's a little bit on the expensive side, 4 or 5, I guess. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but I think you get some decent parts and stuff. But support is really a 10, and I'm quite impressed with Traxxas in that area. So that's pretty much it for the truck and all the different categories. So what's my conclusion on this truck? It's a good recreational vehicle. I think it's a good first car to pick up. You know, if someone were to ask me what kit should I buy, you know, it's going to be my first RC car. I want to get something for my kids, or, you know, I want to just learn how to drive and you know, kind of learn about the hobby. I think this is a good way to go, because this is, you know, a legitimate RC, you know, hobby grade vehicle. It's got, you know, full size normal servos, ESCs, motor, everything. Everything's standard on this truck. And you can upgrade parts and stuff like that. So as an entry-level vehicle, I think this is a really good start. It does not have that great of performance. You know, you really can't race it as is that well unless you're running like kind of a stock spec class. But if you're just kind of want to mess around, go to the park, drive around down the street, go to your local baseball diamond and drive around, you know, I think this is a really good truck, a really good start. And I can't really fault anybody for wanting to buy one. You know, I think it's still one of the best choices in the hobby today. And a big part of that, I think, is just being able to get parts, just being able to get support. You can easily get anything you need. You can upgrade the truck. So it's just such a well supported platform, and everyone knows how to work on these. Everyone, you know, carries stuff for it. So it just makes it easy to own. So from that standpoint, if nothing else, I think it's a great first start. If you're an experienced RC car driver, or you've been in the hobby a long time, you know, you're going to be disappointed in the performance of this truck. It's not fast, it doesn't handle well. You know, it does need a lot of work to get you know, basically kind of race level, I guess. And I've actually done that. You know, I do have my race kit, but I honestly can't recommend this. You know, something like an HPI Blitz or SC10 or a Losi or something like that is just going to be a better like race level RC truck. But if you just want to mess around, you know, I think this is fine. So anyways, that's pretty much it from my review. Overall, Traxxas Slash, I probably haven't told you something, you know, much that hasn't been covered in other videos, but that's my thoughts. Decent truck, you know, pretty much adequate performance, adequate durability, adequate price. You can't go wrong, I think, if you buy one of these, if you just want to mess around. But if you want, like, you know, something that's gonna just drive like amazing and kick everyone's butt, you know, this is not really the truck to get. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to my channel as always. Throw down comments, and thanks for watching. Take care, guys.